Hello everyone, I'm going to talk about my assessment and reassessment. This was for my Module 2, which was rational numbers, and that was more specifically working with negative and positive numbers and adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. This assessment is actually the end of the unit assessment. So by this time, they've had lots of practice, homework, and whatnot with this, with these standards. So if you can follow along with my little red laser beam there. So this graph here is the initial assessment here. And you look at it and you see that there's 27% that are in this dark green area, and that corresponds to the exceed standards. And then moving along to the light green, I have the 37%, which is meet standards. And then the yellow, which is nearly meet standards, and that's 27%. And then finally, the doesn't meet standards is this red section at 9%. So I really got in there and looked at each of the scores for both the nearly meet standards and doesn't meet standards and tried to figure out what was going on with those individual students. And I have an opportunity in my math enrichment class at the end of the day to work with these students and help them individually or in groups. This class has been restructured to, I'm required actually to do a little bit of ELD in there, so I do have a couple of ELD students that need that support, but the students are doing particular math instruction. Everyone is, even if they are in this exceed standards. They might actually do something that's more a higher level than what they have been working on, so they can at least extend their knowledge and continue to still grow, and even these students here. But they are working on different things. They might be games, stuff like that. So I also do groups with everybody and kind of tailor it to kind of where they are on this scale, and maybe what I'm working on that week or whatnot. So I did get in there with the reteach and really worked on those standards that they were struggling on. And really what they were struggling on was the adding and subtracting. And that tends to have a little bit more skills in there involved than the multiplication and division. There's only one rule for multiplying and dividing, and in general they did pretty well with that part of it. So I really did focus more on adding and subtracting, but still kept that multiplying and dividing in there. So I worked with their individual groups with the needs that they had and gave them lots of practice, even gave them some other skill strategies to really take a look at and to be able to excel. So they had done a reassessment, which was basically taking what they had done on this initial assessment and did, which essentially is test corrections, and they can rework those problems. And and then here is the reassessment chart. So, so in taking a look at that one here, I'll move my little red dot. So I had gotten in the dark green, which is the exceed standards, 55%. And I'll actually back up so you can compare both of them. So I got 55% in exceed standards, so that had definitely increased by quite a bit in that section. And then the meet standards in light green is 15%. And then 15% as well for the nearly meet standards, and 15% for the doesn't meet standards. And it's kind of interesting to see that this section had gotten a little bit heavier, but I looked at these people that were in the 9% in the initial. They had actually jumped up either to the yellow section green. I actually had one that jumped up into the exceed standard, so he had done really well on that. But I took a look at, there's the three were previously in one of these sections and they had dropped down into there and kind of took a look. And, you know, it's kind of typical of these three that ended up dropping down into here. One is actually a deaf student of mine, and I think there's some communication issues in there, and also, you know, I know she has some test anxiety in there, and little different other things kind of going on with that. And then another one is a student has an IEP, and that aide that works with the student and kind of helps keep them on task was not available during this reassessment. So, you know, I think those students that drop down into here, I'll be kind of taking a look at them, and you know, maybe it might be best that that I just do more of an informal check to see how they are doing. So those are my initial and my reassessments on my students.